This is Dr. Sharon Ufberg on Alive and Kicking on the ToutSuite After Show. I just had the great pleasure to interview Jane Noble Knight on NPR's Alive and Kicking. Jane, thanks for staying for a few more minutes and speaking with us here at ToutSuite. We are talking about Jane's amazing new book, The Inspiring Journey of Pilgrim Mothers. It's a collection of stories that Jane has collected on her own pilgrim journey in the last couple years. Thank you so much for staying and speaking with us. How are you doing today? How is it in England?
It's great. It's actually sunny looking out of the window there. Blue sky, a bit of clouds. So yes, tea time here. So
tea time.
Lovely. Thank you for asking, Sharon.
Tea time is actually the time that most of ToutSuite shows go on. So we call it the wine hour, but you can call it tea time if you'd like.
Well, I could call it the cocktail hour, you know.
That's more in line with
because I've got a glass of water here and not a glass of wine at the moment.
Well, after the show, we can all drink a little wine. Jane, as like a best-selling author and speaker and mentor, this book that just has come out really just in July of 2013 is such a wonderful collection of the stories and interviews that you've done on your journey. Can you recap a little bit about your journey and how you started collecting these stories? And then we can talk a little bit about some of the stories that you have written.
Sure. Well, back in 2009, I was on a BBC One house swap programme, and at the end of it, the presenter said to me, right, you're not moving house then, you're not doing this exchange, now what? And out of my mouth came, I'll probably get a camper van, put the dogs in it and travel around ancient sites. And I was sort of looking around, who said that? And I thought, oh, it was me. And then I thought, well, that's not such a bad idea. And so over the next 9 months, I kept seeing this white camper van. And then the phrase, the Pilgrim Mother, came to me. And to cut a long story short, I discovered the story of the Pilgrim Mothers in January 2010. And I'd only ever heard of the Pilgrim Fathers before then. I had no idea that there were women who'd gone over in the as well. Of course it makes sense, but I just thought about the fathers. And so when I heard about their amazing stories and the hardships and all that they'd achieved and what real pioneers they were, who actually went on to be more than just belongings of the men, but to actually own property and land in the US, I thought, you know, there are so many women who have been lost in history, their stories. What a tragedy. And it set me on a mission to both share the stories of these original Pilgrim Mothers, but also the stories of other amazing women pioneers in the present day. And so I just found that women came across my path, and as they did, then I would record conversations with them. And along the way, lo and behold, I got myself a white motorhome, travelled around the UK with my dogs, and, you know, went on this Noble Knight's mission, basically, to share these wonderful stories.
I know, well, with a name like Noble Knight, I think it's only fitting that you went off on your own journey to find these women and tell these stories. Are there any particular stories in the book that surprised you? Were they stories of women that you didn't expect? Were you sitting somewhere and just felt like, oh, I never expected this woman to tell me this story? Can you give us a teaser?
Oh, do you know, there were elements of that in all the stories, because one of the really humbling things was how open these women were and how much they shared. So, for example, I interviewed in a previous book women entrepreneurs who on the surface look really successful. And yet, when you spoke about their stories, they'd all had these moments of, the dark night of the soul. And in my second book, a Californian writer, Catherine Woodward Thomas, who was part of my own journey because I did the Feminine Power telecourse, the first one that she and Claire Zammit did in 2010. And when spoke to her about her story, I was like, wow. So I think too often you can look at women and think, oh, it's all right for you. What do you know about hardship? Look at all you've got. But really, we have no idea what the story is and what has been sacrificed, what has been achieved in order to get to this point. So that was a wow moment with someone from California like yourself, Sharon.
Yay! It's interesting because I noticed that the byline to the book says pioneering pathways to inner peace. So I'm sure you just in the book, there's many stories of what appears to be their outside story, actresses, poets, writers, successful businesswomen. But it appears that you're trying to delve a little deeper and touch into their inner peace and how they kind of connect their outer life with their inner life. And I thought that was very unique, and it makes the book and the stories in the book much more personal. Was that something that you did deliberately, or how did you mix that piece into your interview?
Well, thank you for those kind words, Sharon. In fact, the subtitle didn't come until right at the end, which might sound surprising. What I'd actually done was use my feminine intuition in a way of, gathering these women who I'd met on my own personal journey, my own personal pilgrimage, and just trusting that they had stories to share. And without exception, each one had amazing stories to share. So to give another example, in the book is Najala Tamrakar Wright, who is the first Nepalese professional mountain biker. And when you look at her, she is this fragile, absolutely exquisite woman. And in fact, I came across Najala via her now husband. And he was a pilgrim father that I had gone to interview, who had an amazing story. And at the end of my interview with him, he said, you really need to speak to Najala. And she spoke very quietly. And I discovered this story. Now, I had to have her in the book and discover more, because that is so against the culture in Nepal, where, this was just not done. And the challenges that she had to face and getting international sponsorship. She's the only Nepalese mountain biker, male or female, that actually took part in the World Cup, and that was in Val d'Isère last year. And now she retired at the pinnacle and is doing painting. So she is tapping into something, this fulfillment within herself, and this creativity is now being channeled into amazing artworks, taking other people on pilgrimages throughout Nepal, which obviously she has an intimate knowledge of. So that's one example of inner peace and fulfillment, and in different ways. So to have one career and then go on to another career with equal fulfillment, which is fascinating.
I think it's so wonderful when you get to meet women like this woman that you described and see how they grow and evolve and continue to kind of live their authentic life, their soul's journey. And that it's one of the richest part of your interviews, that you get to see how each individual emerges in that way. And I really do believe that part of it is because you yourself were also taking a sort of pilgrimage. So this idea that you hopped into a camper alone with your dogs and went on this journey, you attracted that kind of woman to yourself. You were looking and open to living again your own authentic life, and I think it's a real inspiration. I'm sure along the way you found inspiration from the women that you were writing about, and they too were inspired by you. Are you thinking of what's next now you've written the Pilgrim Mothers? What's on your horizon? Like, what are you thinking of? You're not living in the camper anymore, right?
No, I've still got the camper van, so I can, go out in it when I want to. That was a really perceptive comment, actually, Sharon, about how my own journey evolved. Because when I set out and discovered the Pilgrim Mothers and took on the mantle, no way was I a Pilgrim Mother then. I had lots of things that then I had to get rid of, like, house, possessions, all sorts of things happened in order to evolve me into a Pilgrim Mother. So I really had to, take courage and let go and just know that this was absolutely the right thing, and allow life to happen and for people and situations to come my way. So what's next on the horizon is, well, a third book, a series of books. I see this a bit like Jack Canfield's Chicken Soup for the Soul, where, it's going to be a set of 9 women. And I would love to record an interview with you, Sharon. I'm sure you've got an absolutely amazing story. I'm also planning to do a program of recorded conversations, so that it's not just in book format, but audio and video, a bit like you do yourself, so that the world is such a small place now, and women gain inspiration from other women. And I really think that we need proper role models. We need mothers. It's not just about celebrities being outrageous and, stick thin and all the rest of it. It's about real women, real mothers who don't have to actually be birth mothers, because there's something within women, this maternal instinct. We need more of the maternal everywhere. We need it within homes, within businesses. I mean, the whole global economy would collapse if women were not there and doing this unpaid work, but really not being valued and recognised as much as we should be. And so I'm on a mission, really, to celebrate the lives of, well, so-called ordinary women, but who are living extraordinary lives and make a difference to those around them every single day. So I suppose that's on the horizon.
I think there's a little activist in you that's rising up from pilgrim to activist. I hear it.
I was arrested on a peaceful protest. I have actually got a criminal record, even though the case was dropped. So yes, that could be so. I think it's the 60s teenage, the rebellion side of me, Sharon.
Well, I don't think we change much. I think that rebellious side of you is coming out loud and clear. I think it's so interesting that you can talk about and say, yes, I once protested peacefully at a peace march, and fast forward, you raised 2 lovely daughters and had probably a much more sedate period of time in your life. And now, as you're freer and your children are grown, you're getting to explore and bring out today the pilgrim, tomorrow the activist. It's all, it's all there for the taking. I think, when I think about how I met you myself, we met through a friend from South Africa who met through a friend. This is the way the world of women is. And I think just like your books are so inspirational, you're reading the next book that's inspirational to you, that brings you to the next step. I love the idea that you're going to tell real stories of real women and continue to tell those stories, and not just famous women. I mean, I think many of the women in your book, and I'd love you to describe maybe one more that's in the Pilgrim Mother. They are just regular women, you know. Tell us one more story. Give us one more teaser before I have to let you go.
Okay, I'll tell you about Sue Allen then, who wrote Mayflower Maid, because she is now an expert on the Pilgrims. Now, Sue lives in the British Pilgrim country, really, which spans 4 different counties. Now, she was fascinated by Gainsborough Old Hall and went for a job there, and then discovered that actually, you know, she'd done all her research, was fascinated by this place, and didn't get the job because it was a foregone conclusion. So a bit like me, something coming out of her mouth, she said, well, you can use all my ideas and I'm going to write a book about Gainsborough Old Hall and tell this story. And 9 months later, she did. You know, she had to, having spoken it out loud, and she didn't know where that voice came from, but then she was published. So she writes about the Pilgrim women, and she was, you know, in a single parent with 4 boys. Her husband had left her, and really her career started at 50, and she's now the author of several books. She ended up doing the Jamestown trilogy about the Pilgrims and is invited to speak everywhere and runs tours in the Pilgrim County and is wonderful. She dresses up as one of the Pilgrim women, and people really get, you know, a bit of drama involved, and also does guided tours of Scrooby Manor, the home of William and Mary Brewster. So we get quite a few Americans coming over and really loving this taste of history of their 4 mothers and 4 fathers. So that's a taster. That's one tiny part of her fascinating story. There's much more to it, I have to say.
Well, people will have to get your book. I'm going to show it one more time. The Inspiring Journey of Pilgrim Mothers. And Jane Noble Knight, you're one Pilgrim Mother yourself. It is so great to have you on the after show and get to talk to you. Tell everyone how they can find you and find the book.
Well, my website is thepilgrimmother.com. I'm happy to accept any emails and share stories with anybody who contacts me at jane@thepilgrimmother.com. I will send signed copies of the book if people want to have an individual copy. It's also available on Amazon as Kindle and paperback, so really very easy to find.
Thank you so much for being here at the ToutSuite Alive and Kicking After Show. It's always a pleasure to see you. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and you have a great evening.
Thank you. It's been a real delight. Thank you, Sharon.